Episode 33, 3 Ways to Fail at Everything in Life.
You're listening to the very best podcast in the world on health, wealth, and happiness. Please remember to leave a review and share with all your friends and family. And here is your host, Lars Hilser.
Good morning on this Wednesday, the third day of the week, with episode 33, 3 Ways to Fail at Everything in Life, with more threes to come, probably. I don't know. Welcome, kitty cats, to a very awesome and improvised episode. Because, to be perfectly blunt, I spent all night yesternight contemplating what incoherent stuff I would be telling you today. And most importantly, whether there were any lessons learned. And then I thought, wait, hold on. There is an interesting thing in the past that I came across and studied, which was the whiners. And, you know, we had this episode a few weeks, days, I can't recall, ago, where it was about whining, right? And it's about, there's a few more things that make you not a failure. That would be judging. You know, it's up to you whether you tackle problems or you whine about them and then have to tackle them anyhow. So it's like, taking one equation or one variable out of the equation, more like that. And then just getting it done anyhow because it needs to get done. So that's about, the growing up bit in life, which a lot of us don't really do, especially guys, and I'm one of them. Self-reflection is so fucking important, people. But this episode is going to be rather short because, where is it? I don't know how many examples I'm going to be able to stitch together for you, where I came across this kind of behavior that I'm going to outline. However, what I have noticed is in a lot of reading and interacting with, thousands of people, probably by now. So a staggering number of not intense relationships, but relationships beyond your hello and goodbye and having polite conversations. So people I worked with, people I worked for, people I worked, with, whatever. And out came this interesting, deliverable, if you will, of 3 core problems which people who were not so successful really had. And this is not necessarily about being successful in a monetary sense. It's more about being successful in life. And I deliberately mention this because you don't need to be monetarily successful to be successful. Because the definition of success is your definition of success. And anybody that judges you by the amount of money you have is pretty much superficial. That's the very diplomatic description of these kind of people. Because if there's one thing in life that you need to focus on, it's happiness. And that's one of the issues, or one of the core pillars of this show is, happiness. And then we've got health and wealth, because they kind of play into happiness. If you're sick, you're usually not that happy. A lot of us make a happy face, but, if you've got annihilating pain, then you're not really happy. And, the health bit kind of comes by itself. If you're in pain, you're not healthy a lot of times. So happiness, I think, is, for me at least, and it took a long learning curve and a steep learning curve to get, the hang of, or finding that one thing that is really essential for for being successful is happiness. And happiness can be pretty much the thing that gets you going, right? Whatever that may be. For me, and in this phase or in this life of my journey, is really, I don't know what it is. It's the beauty. It's living the present moment, not dwelling in the past, not really looking too much into the future. Of course, you've got to get a load of shit done. So inevitably, you've got to, kind of divide it into chunks. We had that in personal project granularity a few days ago. And then from there, you kind of live in the present moment. And you'll be amazed if you get to that point at how other things become unimportant and how capable you are of really focusing on the present moment and how beautiful the present moment is, how more beautiful than it is now if you're not stressing out to, catch your next flight or your next appointment or whatever, if you're not dwelling in the past looking for negative occurrences, positive occurrences, whatever occurrences, but if you're just in the present moment and just fucking enjoy it. And that, my friends, is really the pinnacle of satisfaction, and that is the pinnacle of happiness. To give you a very stupid example, I know I'm good at that. The other morning, I woke up at, what was it? I don't know, must have been about 6:30. So about an hour before the sunrise was about to happen. And my better half and I, we always get up together. I then, send her, well, not send her off to work, that would be condescending, but factually it is. I make sure she gets to work safe and has all her shit together. And then usually Stevie and I will either go for a walk or, we lay down for another hour or two if the higher powers request my better half to be at work at ungodly times. And this morning was special. So our house is in a slight valley. It's not really a valley. It's kind of like a little bit, like 20 meters below the surrounding hills. And in a very bad horror movie, you know how you have the fog that moves into or that moves down a slope of grass or whatever into, that's how it looks here. Only in the morning, it's insanely majestic because the fog usually comes from the east where the sun rises. And so you've got this beautiful orange pre-sunrise glow that illuminates the fog and just creates this picturesque scene and, happening over the meadow. And this was the case for that day. And I was kind of in I wouldn't say negative mindset, but I was kind of pissed because I thought that we had to defreeze the car for her to get to work. Turns out we didn't. So, I was happy as a clam. And she drove off and I just stood there and was fucking amazed and was totally captured by the moment because the scene itself was enriched by the outside lighting that we had just installed a few days earlier. And that kind of complemented the entire scene, and the sun or the pre-sunrise rays were hitting the house and, illuminating everything in this orange glow while the sky was blue, just perfectly blue without any cloud or whatever. And that was like the moment. I can still remember the smell. I can still remember the temperature on my skin. I can still remember the humidity that was there, obviously because of the fog. And being able to focus on the present moment that way is a fucking gift. Let me tell you about that. If you're interested to learn more about how to train to get there, please write an email, as always, to the very best podcast in the world at gmail.com, and I'll teach you in a dedicated episode, how to achieve that and how to really encapsulate moments like that in all of their complexity and finesse in your memory for years to come. And the beauty of it is, if you are in a situation which is not as good, to be diplomatic, or if you're in a really shitty situation and you're able to open that memory for yourself and you can feel the temperature, you can smell the fragrances that were in the air of the flowers and the moisture. It's just insane to get you out of any bad situation. That's the point I'm trying to make. So, no idea how I got there, but let's get through to the three things that the three ways to fail at everything in life. And number one is to blame all of your problems on others. If there's a fuck up in your life, more often than, well, not more often than not, but pretty much always you're going to be fucking responsible for the problem that has happened in your life. And it's a very important lesson to get used to that and to tell yourself that and to learn the lesson of how the fuck up happened so that you don't do it again. I know for a lot of people it's insanely difficult, and this very prominent example from The Simpsons comes in where I think it was Lisa does a science experiment with mice and electricity, or is a hamster more intelligent than my brother? I think the project was, where she kind of made both of them I don't know, get a treat to do something, and everybody got electrocuted. The hamster learned very quickly. Bart didn't. And that's actually one of the very important things to take away, is to learn your lesson and to not repeat the mistakes that you made. The mistakes cause your problems. It's not anyone else's fault. And in fact, for myself, it took me a very long time to learn that, because I was busy, really, literally busy looking for someone to be the fall guy for my problems. And there comes a time when you learn for yourself that your problems are just that. They're your problems. You caused them. There may be circumstances that are higher power, that are led by higher power, put upon you by higher powers. There, now we got it. But like I said, in 99.9%, the problems you have are yours, and they're only there because you fucked up. And it's really unproductive to try and blame it on others, because then you're going to miss out on the learning curve on how you can actually improve yourself to avoid problems like that in the future. Now, number two in this list is to complain about everything instead of doing something about it, right? And there's a lot of people out there, just observe it, even on yourself, that you have this mindset of complaining about something that needs to be done fucking anyhow. It's like this extra evolution of complaining that you put in front of the problem, which has to be solved anyhow. So it's like, get at it, get it done, and then you're gonna be good to go. And there's a very big difference in people, and I've been noticing it about myself. But in this, well, I wouldn't call it awakening, but in this new phase of my life, I've had a lot of time to think about how I react to things. And a lot of times I'll, it's like this typical thing, the toothpaste is open, right? And I mentioned this example in another episode. Fucking close it. Don't complain about it. For me, I'm down to giving it a chuckle a lot of times and then just getting it done, right? A lot of times it's about minute problems, but it scales to more complex issues as well. Getting it done in the first place without, having the evolution of complaining about it will just make your life so much better. And if you can't get over yourself to rid yourself of the complaining part, then you're bound to fail at a lot of stuff in life, because complaining isn't really worth it. Now, number three is a lack of gratitude. And this one is insanely important, because there are, again, this is based on observation of a lot of people that I've met. during the journey that I've had on this beautiful planet. It's like a lot of things are taken for granted. And I mean, a lot of them. Uh, with this COVID situation, I did some research on how many people die per day in Germany, where I live. And we have a population of north of 81 million, and 2,500 people per day die. And a lot of them with issues that were, not really something that they were aware of. To give you a prime example, the father-in-law of a friend of mine is 56, I think. Rides his bike, really sporty dude, rides his bike, has a heart attack, falls off, fractures his skull despite the helmet that he was wearing, is in hospital in a coma, right? This dude was sporty, he was healthy, he was eating good food, he was not smoking, he was avoiding, booze wherever he could, mind the glass of wine. And this dude, of all people, rides his bicycle and just has a fucking heart attack. And, it's life itself is just so precious. In your life in particular is, right? Because it's your soul, your consciousness, and your subconscious that reside in your body. And every morning you wake up is a fucking blessing. Get used to it and don't forget it, right? That's the most important thing. So every morning you wake up, you better have a fucking smile on your face, because you're not one of those 2,500 people that died in the past 24 hours, at least in Germany. I don't know what the global numbers are, but they're significant, right? And it goes on in a variety of ways. And I think it was the first episode, which I called You Can't, no, it wasn't the first. It was in one of the first episodes, which I called You Can't Taste the Difference Between Shit and French Fries, where I outlined that on my travels that I've done, I've seen so much misery. And, you come back to the Western world and people actually complain about such silly things. It's a lot of things have to do with the bad tax man and the revenue service that, tax the hell out of people. And it's like, yeah, they do. But the fucking secure and safe life that you live here costs a shitload of money. But you can, just an interesting example is when we have, our neighbor has a forest right next to our property, and he cut down a tree together with a contractor that he had, who had a crane, who lifted it up, whatever. The guy, I invited him for a coffee, and we sat down, and the dude immediately, the contractor immediately started complaining about how he was paying 18% of his income to a construction supervisory authority that, work safety things, yada yada yada. And I was like, yeah, but in your company, how many people have died in the past? This dude was in his 50s probably. I was like, in the past 30 to 40 years. And he was like, well, yeah, none. And I said, well, what's the worst injury? And I mean, I was like, yeah. And he was contemplating about it. I said, was it anything that couldn't be taken care of with a Band-Aid? And he was like, nah, not really. We're pretty good in our safety record. And I was like, yeah, there you go. That's where your money goes. And the dude just wouldn't stop fucking arguing. And yeah, but 80% of the money goes into administration of this entire organization. And it wouldn't end. The guy didn't get it. That we are so fucking grateful to have paved roads, that he doesn't have to not really worry about getting robbed and beat over the head for his day's earnings, and so on and so forth. And all the goodness and greatness that a lot of us are used to is something that we take for granted. And it's not. It is fucking not. If you've ever taken the time to go out of your way to visit a country for your vacation or self-improvement or learning or whatever, you will see that there are, and if you look behind the scenes, there are very, very, very many people who are off worse than you. And you might be as arrogant to say, yeah, but I am justified because no, you're not. You are just another creature of what are we meanwhile? 8 billion. You're insignificant. you are fucking insignificant if you look into, if you look at the global picture. And, no matter how much you screw up your ego or you ramp up your ego, it doesn't make you more important. You're, in the end of the day, you're going to die sooner or later. I hope later. And I hope that, there's not a lot of suffering in the world, in your passing over to the next body. But yeah, we're lucky. We're just fucking lucky. A lot of us really are. And we have to not forget that. And those are really the three things, the three ways to fail at everything in life. And I hope that I was able to give you some insight. And I hope particularly that the gratefulness kind of thing sank in, because there are so many people, at least here in Europe, that complain about so many things while other people in the world are really, really, really suffering. And that's kind of, I think, the bottom line. In that sense, don't blame all your problems on others. Stop complaining about everything, and just get it done. And be grateful for what you have. And if you get rid of, if you take these three things into account, your life just will become inevitably more successful. In that sense, have a good night, have a good day, or both, and leave your hands above the blanket. As always, feedback, please, via email to theverybestpodcastintheworld@gmail.com. And we shall be again together tomorrow, hopefully, to talk about cherry pickers. Peace out, folks.